Good evening, everybody. I'm Mark Christman, Executive Director of Ars Nova Workshop. On behalf of the Institute of Contemporary Art and Ars Nova in Philadelphia, thank you for joining us for tonight's very special virtual discussion featuring Dr. Carlo Ventura, Dr. Baruch Krauss, and Professor Milford Graves. Tonight's event is in conjunction with our exhibition, Milford Graves, a mind-body deal, currently up at the ICA until January 24th. Tonight is also in conjunction with an online screening of Cell Melodies, a brand new digital video documenting Professor Graves' 2016 trip to Bologna as he participates in an international meeting of artists and scientists. The video is produced by Stefano Croci and is available online until November 9th. You can visit our websites, arsnovaworkshop.org and icaphila.org, and we'll put a link in the chat for you as well. Support for the exhibition and tonight's event have been provided by the Pew Center for Arts and Heritage, with additional support from the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts and Joseph Robert Foundation. I want to take a moment to acknowledge, especially as a resident of West Philadelphia, the last few days of powerful social unrest centered here due to the murder of Walter Wallace Jr. Walter Wallace Jr. was a father, a son, a husband, and a twin. His life matters. Both the ICA and Ars Nova have addressed our feelings in more detail through our digital and online networks, including links to ways you can help the Wallace family. You can find them there. We commend the thousands of Philadelphians who have taken to the streets to peacefully protest against systemic injustice. Tonight's event is going to begin with a conversation between Drs. Krauss and Ventura. At approximately 7 o'clock, Professor Graves will join that conversation. And around 7:40, I'm going to jump back into the room and facilitate the Q&A. We'll be monitoring the chat the entire time. So if you feel free to present your questions and thoughts at any time during the conversation. And without further ado, I'd like to bring on our first two guests. Dr. Carlo Ventura received his MD in cardiology and his PhD in biochemistry from the University of Bologna. He was a researcher in the Laboratory of Cardiovascular Sciences at the National Institute of Aging and the National Institutes of Health in Maryland. He is currently a professor of molecular biology at the School of Medicine at the University of Bologna and heads the National Laboratory of Molecular Biology and Stem Cell Engineering for the National Institute of Biostructures and Biosystems in Bologna. Dr. Krauss is a senior associate physician in medicine at Boston Children's Hospital and associate professor of pediatrics at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Krauss's research and educational interests include methods for establishing trust with children, the pharmacological management of acute pain and anxiety in children undergoing diagnostic and therapeutic procedures, and the use of capnography for patient safety monitoring. Dr. Krauss received an MD from the State University of New York at Stony Brook School of Medicine and a master's from Harvard University's Graduate School of Education. Dr. Krauss also studied herbology and acupuncture with Professor Graves. Welcome, Drs. Krauss and Ventura. Take it away.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Hello, Carlo.
Hi. Hi,
I know it's late for you, but we'll try to keep you awake. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Looks like I just froze. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm
okay.
here.
My internet froze for a moment.
Yeah.
So the collaboration between you and Milford Graves is a symphony of diverse disciplines. How did this come about? You, Carlo, embody an impressive breadth of expertise. Clinical training in cardiology, as Mark mentioned, professor of molecular biology, and a scientific investigator, serve as the chief of the National Laboratory of Molecular Biology and Stem Cell Engineering of the National Institute of Biostructures and Biosystems in Italy. From there, you managed to come across Milford Graves, a jazz musician and professor of music, acupuncturist, herbologist and self-taught physiologist working in his basement in Jamaica, Queens. How did this come about?
It was really a fascinating journey. We first met in person in 2016 when we made this event together that we call Cell Melodies. But we had been working somehow together at least 5 years earlier. I read about Milford on the internet about the issue that he was thinking about the fundamental role of sound in biology, and about the fact that he was talking about the baby sound, a sort of an ancestral sound coming from the heart, the variability of a heartbeat, something that avoids adaptations in human beings, something that basically drives our entire life. And I was fascinated by this view because several years earlier, go back around 2004, I started to work with vibrations and sound in a different way. I was working with James Ginczewski, who is a pioneer in nanotechnology and nanobiotechnology. He is a professor of physics and chemistry based in the University of California, Los Angeles. And he set up this Nanoscience, Nanoart Institute. And we were using sophisticated microscopes like atomic force microscopes. So an atomic force microscope can be visualized as a finger of a blind man touching a surface and deciphering nanomechanical motion, so very tiny vibrations. And the issue came out that what we call shapes is not stable. There are inherent forces, inherent vibrational forces that sustain the shapes.
Shapes of what?
The shapes of the cells, the shapes of the
cells.
molecule.
Okay.
Everything. If you think about a molecule that in chemistry we may think about like a lock and the key, in terms of mechanobiology, this becomes a mechanical actuator. It's something that vibrates. It's something that has a mechanical vibrations, but also it is something that it is electrically charged, so it is an electromechanical actuator. But then, if you think about something that is electrically vibrating in space and time, this creates a radioelectric field. Also, these molecules can, not all of them, but part of them, they can absorb light, so they can behave as chromophores. So light is a form of electromagnetic vibration. So within the context of vibration, this word, we have mechanical, sometimes mechanical can be even acoustical, subsonic. You may have electric, electromagnetic, and light. So it is a word where these molecules, they provide their signal, they provide their information, not only as a structure, as a chemical structure, but also as a vibrational entity. So it is a sort of dancing chemistry.
Yes. Vibrations,
and,
I'm beginning to see the Milford connection.
Yes. And the way cells build up their information, their journey, it's not simply having these molecules touching each other by diffusive features inside the cell, but you have to think about something like molecules that create oscillatory clusters that synchronize together. So these are sort of coherent domains where, like electromechanical actuators, they come together, they dance together, and they produce an effect. And the effect is, for instance, like the one that is produced by the fingers of a piano player touching some music instrument. And where is the music instrument? Is what we call the cytoskeleton. So inside the cell, we have this textile artwork made by cable, by microtubuli. which again is a resonating structure made by mechanical oscillator, electric oscillator, light oscillator. And the molecules are like something that synchronizes and swarms within this context.
Yeah,
And
I've always thought of us as electrical beings. Yes, we have ions sequestered on different sides of a membrane, and the channels open up, the ions cross, and we get movement, we get action potentials, we get electricity, and the conduction system of the heart. But I never really thought about the issue of vibration and how that forms into cell structure and language, so to speak. Communication, signaling.
It's all still true, but you can add one more piece of information, that all these electric fields, they have multidimensional shapes. And so based upon the shapes that they fold or unfold inside the cells and around the cells, more and more informations are gathered. Let's say, for instance, this has something to do with music, for instance. Let's say that you imagine that molecules inside the cells should somehow interact like a lock and a key. Is this really possible? Just think for a moment that you want to hug somebody in a room, and the room is empty. During this time with the COVID-19 is not recommended, but let's say that you want to hug somebody to see whether you are compatible with this person, and then you may come up with joy, or will say, okay, not
I have
so good.
A very long list of people I want to hug when COVID goes away.
Me too. And one of them is you.
So now we're going with vibration to music. I'm beginning to see the
just imagine that you can run in this empty room and you can hug the other person. Okay, it's too easy, right? Now the room is full of water. You can swim, but now you're inside the cell. One of the first mistakes that we make all the time is just considering, okay, we're made of water, and 99% the number of water, 77% in terms of weight, molecular weight.
Yep.
But that's not a saline solution, because you have glycosaminoglycans inside the cells. You have hyaluronic acid, many other species like that. So it is a non-homogeneous structure of gel. So inside that gel, you cannot swim very easily. So you will get packaged. And just now imagine that you have to swim in that way, and you have to pass through this very intriguing stuff of microtubuli, intermediate filament, actin filament, all this textile artwork that you have inside the cell. Then you have the nucleus, the mitochondria, all the vesicles inside the cell. Now we know that we have these nanovesicles that go all over around the cells, the exosomes. So it's really impossible to hug somebody with efficiency. But what you can do is vibrate. And if you think at any molecule like an actuator, an oscillator, and you have the oscillator that does not diffuse, but it is placed and moves onto this textile artwork, then you have something really magic that is coming out in science now. So this textile artwork, this network microtubuli, is somehow dissipating the vibrational differences among molecules. So the molecules that are similar in terms of vibrational tuning, they come together, they form a cluster. So they recognize by the fact that they are dancing together, and they are activating a specific part of this textile artwork, and so on and so forth. And you have many clusters that come together, and they move, they create vortices inside the cell. So this dynamic view is like the new software of the cells. The genome, the proteome is like the hardware. And the way you can create informations, the way the stem cells can unfold their tremendous potential, the way you can even reprogram a somatic cell to become a embryonic-like stem cells passes through this world of physics. To me, was really fascinating having this chance with James Jinczewski in UCLA. We came up with this issue where we could record nanomechanical vibrations from the cells according to what they were doing, or to whether they were suffering or they were in good conditions. So
their vibrations would change based on their state?
Yes, absolutely. And let's say that you have a cell undergoing transformation. We say the cell is differentiating into a cardiac cell, a beating cell, a neural cell, whatever. The pathway of vibrations, the signatures the cell is undergoing is completely different according to the commitment of the cell. So in other words, if you can imagine a sound around this, the cell is going to play a different sound, a different melody based upon the fact that the stem cells is becoming a cardiac cell, a neural cell, and so on and so forth. So I was fascinated about the fact that an artist was thinking exactly the same way.
Yes.
And during those periods, it was around 2011, we started with this international movement of arts and science, which we call VID art science. VID comes from the Latin imperative, try to see things with different eyes. And so I wrote an email to Milford, and why don't we try to work together? Yes. I got no answer at the beginning. The email I got was probably wrong. I got another email from a friend of mine, and so finally he replied to me, and we started to work together. And he sent me this cardiac melody, which is really beautiful. It's a symphony coming out from the sound of the heartbeat that he recorded, and he also was able to extract detailed information. So the work of Milford is a very rigorous one in terms of mechanics and acoustic. And we started to play with this sound of the heart, with this cardiac melody, with stem cells. And we found
let's
that
just make sure, Carlo, that people understand what stem cells are. So stem cells are essentially embryonic cells that don't have a job yet. They haven't differentiated into, they haven't been told, you go become a liver cell, you become a brain cell, you become a kidney cell. Yeah, so those are stem cells, what we call pluripotent, right? That they can go in many different directions. I just want to make sure that we're all, because that's critical to understand that.
Yes. And we were working not only on these cells, but in multipotent stem cells, these so-called adult stem cells that can be isolated from the fat or from the bone marrow, for instance. And we probed these adult cells with the cardiac sounds that Milford somehow unfolded from the heart. And the surprise was that instead of having only cardiac differentiation, we also had a neural commitment. So in other words, it was like the sound of the heart was also committing these cells to a neural fate, not only to a cardiac-like lineage. And this can make a lot of sense because the cardiogenesis starts in the human embryo in a place which is very close to what we call the neurogenic plate. In other words, the sites where in the human embryo the primordial, the heart and the brain starts to form are really close to each other. Yes. And nevertheless, the cardiogenesis remains the first morphogenetic event. It's the one that starts first. And it's the orchestrator. Like Milford says, it is his own master, his own conductor is the heart. So from year to year, we came up with the willingness to create an event together. And this was done in Bologna in November, from the 7th to the 9th of November 2016. It was a world premiere where we had on the stage of the theater, we have an inverted microscope bearing human adult stem cells from the adipose tissue. And the microscope was equipped with an hyperspectral imaging camera. It's a form of camera that can perceive the reflection of light emitted by an illuminated surface. And so if you think that everything is vibrating, our cells are continuously vibrating, we can collect the light which is reflected by the cells as a measure of their inherent vibrational modes. And so the idea of the event was having Milford performing on the stage and then recording what the cells were doing. And I asked him
to his music?
Yes, yes, absolutely. They were first passively adapting to Milford rhythms, and when he was holding the phrasing, the cells were developing their own rhythm. And sometimes they were involved with the cell surface, other times the nucleus was involved in the vibration. This was really fascinating. And
this event,
we were,
by the way,
comparing.
This event is on the ICA website. The video of this event,
yeah,
both of what you're describing, is on the ICA website.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So, and then we never stopped. We remained like brothers, always connected. And I'll stop here because I think I said.
I'm wondering what the insights you got from this research and what this might lead to in terms of research in the future. 10, 12 years down the road.
Yes, from a scientific standpoint, the relevance of this may be that based upon the diffusive features of these physical energies, like a vibration, sound, or light, you
coming
can,
from the cells? Coming from the cells?
Yeah, yes, you can harvest this music from the cell. And so you can harvest vibrational patterning that are not only mechanic, but also electromagnetic. In other words, if you sample the light pattern which is reflected by the cells, and it is also transmitted by the cells, you can come up with two forms of vibration. One is mechanical, the other one is electromagnetic. They both entail informations, they both can be combined, and in other words, you can send these physical energies to virtually any tissue. All the tissues of the human body, they have tissue-resident stem cells. They are not pluripotent, they are less effective than embryonic stem cells, but then it is proven that you can reprogram these cells to become more clever, to become more effective in repairing a tissue. So in other words, instead of transplanting cells or tissue to regenerate a damaged organ, you can send physical energies, you can rely upon the diffusive features of these energies, you can target the stem cells where they already are, resident in all the tissues of the human body. And the outcome of this will be boosting our inherent ability for self-healing, which is a property of any biological entity. So this is from the scientific standpoint. What we found is that when an artist comes into the scene, the kind of sound, the kind of music that can be generated is much more elaborated, and the cells can perceive this and can adapt accordingly. So from this point onwards, it becomes a new paradigm where music, but not only music, even the sound of the voice of a an artist. Even the colors are photobiomodulations. If you look at a painting, that's a mixture of colors. But why they are so important to move our biology and touch our soul, so that we respond to light vibrations
Like the
as we
cells
respond
do.
to mechanical vibrations. and arts can have this additional capability to unfold new paradigms, and at the same time, science can work together with artists and maybe be of help in this journey.
Yes.
I love the ancient Greek word methods. Comes from methodos, which means meeting each other on the street, on a different road that was not pre-decided on both sides. So meeting each other on the road is something really beautiful, and this is something that happened between Milford and me, and I'm glad that that it happened.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. It's just that it seems to me that this whole area of investigation in terms of medicine, that really there's been no focus on this, or really no investigation of how you can use, of what the signatures, the vibrational signatures of cells are, organs are, and how that can be used to understand physiology and pathophysiology, and actually, as you were talking
Absolutely.
about before, be able to correct that. Yeah, that's really
Absolutely.
extraordinary, really extraordinary. Yeah, and I have one question is, well, you're talking about that Milford was using particular cardiac sounds which he had harvested from heartbeats
Yes.
to influence the cells. Have you found that if you are bombarding the cells with different vibrations, with different music, there's different responses, or they don't respond to a whole category? Or what is it about what Milford's sound was that elicited such a response in the cells?
Yes, the peculiarity of the work of Milford was to decipher a vibrational patterning which is produced by the left ventricle in the very early phase of contraction, which is the one that gives rise to the most productive ejection fraction of the blood from the left ventricle. And that part of vibration, I call it vibration because it's below 10 hertz, so the human ear cannot perceive it. So he rose the pitch, and but also he made we call it autosimilarity curves. So he was playing with the logarithm of the power of the sound versus logarithm of the frequency to come up with fractal frequencies. So in other words, with a series of frequencies that were entailing the most coherent form of vibrational energy. You can think about an ordered state or an healthy state in cells and tissues as a sort of coherent and harmonic vibration.
Yes.
When this harmony is broken, then you can call it a disease. So once we gave this melody to our adult stem cells, they were usually from the adipose tissue, but we also treated stem cells from human termed placenta, which is usually discarded after delivery. And then we get the same results, which was both cardiogenesis and neurogenesis. So the cells were somehow funneled both into a neural pathway and the cardiac pathway. When we scrambled, I asked Milford to scramble to make this melody not a melody anymore, to disorder the sound.
Yes.
we didn't see such an effect.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a proof that his work entails specificity. It's a very rigorous work in terms of science. And what I forgot to mention is that in 2018 we came up with a patent together. It's a worldwide patent, and it was on the use of sound to modulate the features of non-embryonic stem cells, and this may have clinical relevance as well because it's in a fat tissue, human fat tissue derivatives that for the first time was holding the adipose-derived stem cells within their, how can I say, home. We call it a niche. So in other words, the stem cells don't stay in any part of the tissue. They specific architecture where some peculiar capillary vessels and precursors adipose cells are located. We call it the stromal vascular niche. So we succeeded in creating a human adipose tissue that is now in clinical practice in many issues like osteoarthritis, diabetic foot, or inflammatory bowel diseases, and then we could prove that with the sound of Milford, we could enhance the capability of these adipose-derived stem cells to transform at a better outcome into bone cells, cartilage cells, and adipose cells, plus endothelial cells and cardiac-like cells. I say cardiac-like because the differentiation was not complete, but it was on the way. So that was a major step forward because you can imagine that by delivering the music that Milford created to an organ where you transplant those cells, you can both enhance the capability of the tissue to receive the transplant, to interact with the transplant, and then you can also enhance the capability of the tissue to talk with the stem cells for a better outcome, for a better regenerative effect.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I keep thinking about I love to cook, and I do a lot of sauce reductions, and which is basically reducing things down to their essence. And it sounds like really that's what Milford was doing on a technical level, was doing a sauce reduction on the essence of the vibration, the frequencies and music coming from the heart. And that's what the cells were responding to in terms of their differentiation. And the neural component makes complete sense too, because of all the neural connections between the brain and the heart. I think it's time to bring Milford on so we can
absolutely
expand this discussion. There he is.
This is where you are.
I'm there.
Milford, so we've been talking about your contribution to the collaboration with Carlo and the impact of your music on the stem cells.
Yes.
How did you determine what music to play for the cells?
Good question. Probably it was, I was stimulated by listening to a recording of normal and abnormal heart sounds from a recording that Dr. Geckler made. I think it was maybe the 1950s, maybe. And he made it for medical students. And on my lunch break, actually I was working for Dr. Katz, as you know, his laboratory tech guy. And on my break, I used to go over to Barnes and Nobles And I would go up into the science section and just look around. And I saw this recording and it said, you know, heart sounds, normal, abnormal. And I said, that sounds fascinating. So I brought this record and I came home and I put it on. And I said, I don't believe what I'm hearing. Because most of the rhythms that were on there, I played these rhythms through traditional drumming, particularly drumming that was coming from Africa, primarily Nigeria and Ghana, but really from Nigeria. And it was from the Yoruba people. And this music was sort of transported into the Caribbean to Cuba, Haiti, Brazil, and a few other places. But these were the three main spots. Then this drumming and music was transported into the Americas and the South. The difference is when they got to the South, sometimes, you know, the drums wasn't available. So you used to do a lot of body rhythm, like ham-bone, you know, ham-bone, where you've been around and you're hitting yourself on the chest, the top of the forehead, and the mouth, the jaws, and everything else. So I heard these rhythms. I said, my gracious, where did these Africans get it from? So I further researched the whole origin of African drum rhythms. And there's this American guy, Armstrong, who was heading this institute in Nigeria. And he was there for about maybe 20, 30 something years. And so he got all these African drummers to perform all these ritual rhythms. And he just recorded this stuff. And then he would get a lot of folkloric conversations going on about where these rhythms came from. And it always would pop up that these were indwelling spirits in the human body. And I said, well, what are the Nigerians back during the ancient times? How did they figure out this stuff? Well, doing ritual now. This is ritual. When you get to those kind of ceremonies, and very few people do that today, they pretend to be like, they choreograph all their movements, and they don't have a really true understanding of the origin of these movements. Well, when you go to the folkloric aspect in Nigerian music, you see they talk about like the hand clapping, the voice being a very part of like ritual, but the drums came later. So I said, the indwelling spirits, I said, I think these guys, when ritual was taking place and they was getting possessed by a lot of the rattles, the hand clapping, and the voice, that they were practically nude just about. And if you look at the chest and people who are thin-walled, they probably saw a lot of palpitations going on, because they would always say, listen to the indwelling spirits. And then the drums that they were making a lot of times was in the shape of a human being. I said, it seems like these guys in ritual, they was listening to what was taking place in the human body. And they duplicated, or they try to simulate these rhythms that they're hearing and put them on the drum. So I said, wow. I said, so these guys in Nigeria, they've been playing this stuff all the time. It wasn't that they went to a laboratory. So I started to go deeper and deeper and deeper into a lot of the rhythms I learned. And that's how I basically came with it. Then I know what I did. I recorded heart sounds, and then I looked at the basic waveform of a heart sound. So I looked at the voltage changes. I looked at the electrocardiographic distances between certain segments, and I started calculating. And I said, wow. I said, so in 30 milliseconds, this would be equivalent to this part of a ritual heart rhythm. And then I started putting it all together. I started chopping and microsizing those heart waves. And then what I did, I started building these algorithms, and the algorithms was coming off all these shapes and these different geometrical shapes that I was able to compare with things that I saw by working with plants, the multitude of colors, the multitudes of shapes. So a lot of my algorithms was geometrically constructed. And by whatever means, it came out to be what it was. And I said, I've created these melodies. And, but that's the basis of what happened.
You have to explain to me the part about the plants. Where does that fit in? I didn't
Oh,
understand
it was
that.
it was the whole shape of plants, you know, the whole shape of a plant. And I looked at the shape of these plants. Then I said, well, it's the shape of a plant. It goes back to the so-called doctrine of signatures. And not just if a plant grows in a swamp or if it grows in a swampy water with stones, like for kidney problems, or if the plant has thorns and it's good for pain. So, I was thinking what the whole ancient guys was talking about. And I said, well, what else would a plant give me that would look like something like a cell? And so when I started really looking at more pictures of cells, the shapes of cells, the internal, just the internal morphology of a cell. When I was looking at all of this stuff, I said, my gracious, this looks like this looks like that. So my algorithms, when I wrote them, they would actually be like designing like plant formulas, just how a plant would look inside. So it was something I really deeply felt.
Hmm.
You know, if you're asking for an intellectual academic reason, I couldn't really give you that. But I could tell you from deep in my soul and from my intuitive ability, and because that's my strongest point, you know, my intuition. I just said, this just feels, it seems right. And I trusted myself. And so this came up. This what came out.
Amazing.
You know, it's something that you just have to do sometimes. You can't always try to make basic, like intellectual or academic sense out of something. You feel it. That's the artist. Yeah. You feel it. It's so divine in you to feel this thing and trust yourself.
And when you would play these, after you put the sounds through the algorithm and etc., when you would play them, what effect did they have? What effect did you notice the different sounds had physiologically?
Well, what I did, what I noticed, first of all, is that this is where I get into trouble. This is where I get into trouble.
I don't want to get you into trouble, Milford.
No, I said, the first thing I noticed, I said, we should really, without doubt, not close down music conservatories. We need to reconstruct them. We have a do different system of how we teach music. You know, I said, and I really realized the way we're teaching music, it doesn't kill us, but it doesn't move us to another dimension, another level of how we vibrate. You know, people talk about the fourth dimension. What about the seventh? What about the 11th dimension? And so what it does, it gives me a sense of total liberation. I mean, and really total liberation. And, you know, I want to say this quickly because I've been thinking about this here. The condition that I have right now, 3 years ago, I was told I had 6 months to live. 6 months passed by, now it's 3 years. And after that 1 year, they said maybe one more year you have. So people are waiting around, different doctors, for me to leave. They said, they don't know why I'm not leaving. Well, I know why I'm not leaving. I figured this out. I think I figured this out. It's that, and no, some people say to me, they say, well, and they say it in a way that is so immature and so undeveloped, is that, well, if you're such a guy that knows so much about the heart and music and all this, why did you get a heart condition that's incurable? I said, I asked myself that question. I said, well, first of all, I said, I was probably preparing from my own heart condition over 30, 40 years ago. And I said, I've become a part of a ritual too. And as I mentioned earlier, people talk about ritual. I don't think they understand what ritual is. Ritual simply means you have to involve yourself in that situation. In other words, it's some higher forms that's telling me, hey, buddy, you want to learn how to cure heart disease? You want to learn how to rectify these things that they say they cannot cure. They don't know where they came from or how to do anything about it. They said, you're going to have to become one and one with this disease. You have to implant yourself inside the disease, not on the surface, not looking at somebody else with the problem. You're going to have to get this problem and be serious if you want to know how to do this here. And that's what I feel is happening to me and why I'm sticking around. They're saying, now you're involved. Now, what are you going to do? Sit around? Are you going to complain? Are you going to give up? I say no. And then I feel as I'm at my highest creative point that I have ever been.
And what have you learned in this process?
What I've learned in this process, that I think I'm on the right track. I figured something out.
That's right.
You know, I figured something out, and I'm trying to get to this conclusion now. Actually, we're developing this new device here that is going to stimulate the cells, and which Dr. Ventura was talking about. That I listened to him, and I tell you, that guy, man, you know, I don't know, man. I thought first, I got to say this here, since I got to Mike. At first, when I kept saying, I need to meet a cardiologist, man. I need a real smart guy, man. And the States here, they would call me up and say, oh, your work sounds great, you know? That's what they would say. But when he contacted me, I said, this is some guy joking, man. This is some guy for real, because he said he didn't hear from me. I said, somebody, man, is doing something to me. That is doing something to me that I don't know if this guy's for real. So we talked a lot. He was on the phone a lot. And I checked him out. I said, this guy's for real. And then when it really came, when I went over there and seen the whole setup, and I came back here, I was so enlightened. And, you know, our thing goes back a long ways, man. We can have a story on our whole life together, you know. And you two guys, man, have been such a reward for me and an inspiration for me to like carry on. But you know, I call you anytime we've talked over the years, and you inspired me. And same thing with Carlo. You guys have inspired me to a degree, man, that it's great. It's so great, and I want to thank you guys for that. But the way I play now, it may be controversial, you know, but I do what I do because I honestly feel it. Now, from this research, and then working with Carlo and the whole Ventura family, I call it Ventura family, and the Bologna family, is that it makes me feel like I'm on the right track of doing what they call music, or I call tonal rhythmology, that has no definition and within the contemporary music kind of semantics.
Milford, if what you speak about, when you were talking about the process of discovering this process of creating music from the heartbeat and very specific, very rigorous kind of music, and you talked about how you just have to feel it and know it as a very individual process. How do you then teach that? How do you pass on that information?
Oh, that's simple.
Such an individual process.
How do you teach your children? They got to participate with you. I feel as though during history, I read a lot about all these great inventors and so on and so on. And I said, it's fascinating how a few people has determined how we should think. On the past, a few people. And sometimes we don't challenge. I feel as though that we, all people, man, we have something to offer. And you're talking about a crime. I think the worst crime we can commit is not inspiring people to say, I am somebody, I can participate in how we think. But for one person to come up with an idea, and then this one person is sponsored, you see, because I personally seen people get support. They get support, man, from foundations. And I said, this is a crime, man, to neglect people who are very intelligent and very smart and has the know-how. You get no support. But it seems like a lot of these people get support. They have a very limited amount of information, and they're mostly very selfish because they're doing for themselves. They come with an idea and they're always telling everybody else, you're wrong, I'm right. I'm saying, no, I'm only a part of the plan, but you can offer something too. And the thing I try to do with all my students, I want you to be who you can be, man, what you can contribute. And I think that's the power that I have to be able to do what I do, is to be very honest and say, you know, I don't own this information. It was passed on to me, man, from some higher form. And I'm one of the people that's probably been put throughout history to receive this information and pass it on. But it's through participation. It's not through sitting down and being dictated in a way, man, that I clone you and limit your expression. I'm always saying, what do you have to offer? I will give you a chance to express yourself. And sometimes things comes out of people that I'm proud of. I said, I knew you had it. I knew you had it because I spotted it. And so I teach by doing, not by trying to dictate you. You do step one, you do step two. I said, I'm going to give you something, man, that's very honest, very true, it's very human, and it's deep down inside, and it deals with nature. So people say I do acupuncture, I do martial arts, I do botany and all that stuff. I don't do it just to put on the front to say, well, I know this and I know that, to be an intellectual. I do it, man, because I love nature. Nature has so much to give us, but we're stepping on it, man. We stomp on it. We pollute it, man. You understand? We have no respect for nature at all, man. People look at wind, fire, and water. They talk about these elements. Man, this stuff is so strong, man. Talk about fire. Then when you talk about fire, if you look at religions such as the Yoruba, when you talk about like Shango, if you talk about the Ifa from the Congo, you know, and you talk about the Malian stuff, man, this stuff is so powerful. They think because these guys run around, man, wrapped in certain kind of cloths, or how they just look in general, that they have nothing to offer. I said, you're out of sync. These people, man, they praise nature. They respond to nature. We have looked at nature and said, we will tell you what to do. But these people ask nature, tell us what to do. When you follow the orders, man, you know what I mean? You come up with things by doing, not by talking. You got to do it. So the way I teach it, I will allow people to participate with me. I never knock you. Any people, musicians that play with me, I try to set up something and say, look, I don't know what you're going to do, but I know what I'm going to do. And my job is to inspire you, And I don't know if Jason Moran is listening to this, but we did a concert together, and this recording will come out soon. It was about maybe, what was it, 2-3 years ago, something. What was that festival? Who remember any guys?
Big Ears.
Huh? Big Ears. And so we went down there and played. And Jason, man, everybody's talking about, man, how great this was. And in the middle of the performance, man, Jason stood up. Jason stood up, man, and took one of his shirts off and said, I'm hot. He was sweating. And I was laughing, man. I want to tell Jason, you ain't sweating because you're hot. You're sweating because you're in ritual. Jason played his backside off, man. You know, and I said, I did my job. I tried to inspire him, man, that played the keyboard. And it was great, man. It was great, man. What we did together, man. We played together.
And when you create music, are you thinking about the particular effect it will have on people? Or is it that just something that's, I mean, is it very specific in terms of I can create a piece that will have people feel?
Well, you know, Baruch, I play different kind of world music. And I always pay attention to folk music, man. See, we started getting into music when we go to the institution. We start to create music that's a lot of times devoid of so-called feeling or emotions. It's so technical, man, that it has nothing to do with how we as human beings vibrate, man. And it doesn't touch like our soul. Soul I'm translating as like spirit. You know, we talk about spirit, we talk about breath, man. The old thing is how we breathe, man, in the meaning of what wind is. I don't think people, they use words, but they don't truly understand this stuff. And so I go to these different folkloric music, and I listen, and I see how music, they move people, man. You know, they just
Yeah.
really move people, man. And so I studied all these things and said, what makes me move? What makes me feel good, man? There's no more, like you said, if you're cooking food, oh man, not only get nutrition value, does it taste good? I don't want to eat no food that tastes horrible, man. And they tell me, well, it has vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, and all this stuff. I said, man, but it makes me throw up. So what good is it? So when I listen to music, man, don't forget now, we put an apple in our mouth. You know, you may look at just the shape of an apple, you know, and you're visualizing this apple, but the apple is being transformed into an electrical event and eventually becomes a vibration. So all of the stuff is converted into vibration, man. That's why you always had music and dining and food went together, man. You know, went together. And so what I do is that I make sure that I'm feeding myself based off all these beautiful melodies I hear, whether it's from Bali, Thailand, whether it's from Ecuador, whether it's from India, sometimes I can't stand to talk about India and Pakistan because I've always seen them as one. I don't like to separate Muslim and Hindu. I mean, those guys all got something beautiful music. When you really get down to the real deep stuff, not this classical stuff that people trying to show how they can write the music and do all of this and do all of that there. It's like, it's feeling, man. We forgot about feeling. Be honest with yourself. Does it make me feel good or make me feel bad? You know, I've seen people who may put down, like, say, rock music, man. Well, I don't listen to rock music because rock music, they didn't have to go to a conservatory and get their master's or PhD to talk a lot of I don't know what, you know? And I'm not knocking these guys. I'm saying, but man, you've been put into a situation that has isolated you from your soul, man. From your soul. I've had students say, well, I can't play that note. I said, what do you mean you can't play that note? They're trying to practice scales. I said, you see that note that you're playing that says wrong? That's probably the right note. If you have a disease, man, and you're sensitive enough, and somebody told you that you have diabetes, and someone comes up and takes you to a bakery shop, say, eat that donut. Well, wait a minute, that donut, I can't eat that donut because I have diabetes. Oh, but that donut's good, that donut's good. I'm telling people you are right to turn down that donut because of the sugar. And somebody else is so doggone ignorant, they're gonna try to keep feeding you that sugar. Well, that's the same thing with the music note. If you're singing a sound, man, and that sound, you don't feel it, you're not supposed to do it. There's no correct way you're gonna do a scale, man. A tempered scale is only one way to do it. You know, you could take the sound spectrum, man, and you can maybe have within the same span as another, it's the same range of another scale, you may have 40 different sound changes in there. And when we learn here, they're gonna tell me 12 changes? You're insane. They told me just to do 12 sounds. And if I don't hit it exactly on there, well, that's not the one you're supposed to make. So I'm a pure feeling guy. I am so much into feeling, man. Yeah. If I don't feel it, and when I'm saying feeling, it's something not to harm you, man. If you could take, and children are beautiful. But see, children, you go and try to be technical with a child and see what happens. All kinds of children. When you let your soul out, man, and you give them, especially drums, you let them hit the drum skin, they are so turned on. And which is the film that Jake McGinty did on the Full Mantis, when I was with those autistic kids. We only showed a little bit of that film, was only a little bit done. Those kids was really taking off after that there. I mean, I stepped back and looked at these kids, and they looked just like anybody else, but they were laughing, they were moving correctly, because I allowed them to say, go ahead and hit the drum, man. I can't get up here and play this rhythm or play that rhythm, because it may have nothing to do with anything, but I let them freely express themselves. And that's what most of us need. We have to be told to learn how to fully express ourselves, but it has to be someone who's not doing it for just say, like to control somebody to express yourself. You're doing it because you honestly feel, man, that everybody has the ability to contribute to human life.
Milford, I have one question before the Q&A.
Yes.
You talked about how we as human beings vibrate. Could you talk about that? Because that's something that I need to understand a little better.
How we vibrate?
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you what. That's another word. When that heart stops, you stop, my man. When you see that heart moving, when you see it moving, and you know those valves are closing, man, the tendons is moving, and you see it's everything just bouncing all inside. You know, we can say any kind of words. We can say jumping for joy. We can say hallelujah. You know, or we can call it vibration, man. We're talking about motion, man. We have no motion, everything stops. If there's no motion on the planet, we in trouble. So we call that the actual, like the vibration of a plant. What causes a plant to move? I mean, what causes the body parts to move? Now we can have all kinds of technical reasons. We could talk a very way of talking about different hormones, different enzymes, and different kind of
chemical reactions. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, things like that. There, you know,
in the body. Yep.
We can go into, you know, just between potassium and sodium and calcium, magnesium, all that. We can talk about all that stuff. But all we know is that when certain things come together, they're looking at each other and saying, "Hey, who are you? I'm so and so and so and so and so." And the only way you're gonna do that, you better be able to move your mouth. You got to be able to hear you. You see, so it's actually motion I'm talking about when I say vibration.
I understand. Okay. So I think, Mark, we can move to the Q&A. I know, Milford, there's a lot of questions on the chat, so we're going to get to those.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. We have tons of people who have tuned in, and we're actually going to present a poll to see where everybody's coming from while we queue it up. There's a lot of love pouring in from Milford and a lot of praise for this amazing conversation. Thanks, guys. Let's go. The first question I have is from Nathan. Nathan says, the idea that there is an inherent music in the rhythmic oscillation of cell sounds, that sounds very Pythagorean. Could this be a scientific confirmation for the validity of music therapy and sacred chanting that could have benefits for physical and mental health?
Well, maybe I'm hoping I'm understanding something that I heard, but I try to work with some of the people in music therapy over the years. And actually, at one point, I called an organization. I was younger guys, so I would get more angry. And I told them, I said, your problem is that you guys are not getting results you can because you're shutting down people who don't have their masters or PhD in music therapy, who are actually coming from more of an indigenous source, from common people. So I'm saying that the approach that I'm talking about using is that if you don't include this in, then you're not doing a complete situation of music therapy. It can definitely be improved. And the people who did allow me to work with the children were proved. And some of the experiences I had with Andrew Seville, we had as a duo plan. There was some great stuff going on. You get people motivated, moving all around. They coming to you, they talking in a normal kind of way, you know, that they wouldn't talk before they came in. So it's like, you just gotta work together, man. You know, you shouldn't allow a piece of paper from an institution to and categorize a situation that it's not giving us the true approach to how we can heal, man. But Pythagorean, that's a whole nother thing, you know? So it's a lot of people, and which I would say this here, don't close your mind up. Totally close your mind. You know, and people will say it's about the Greeks, it was about the Hindus, it was about the Muslims. And, you know, they tell you all of this stuff, man. I said, but I don't close my mind. I come with an open mind and I study all the cultures throughout the world, man. And I said, well, if these people, if this particular culture got it from that culture, which they did, they shaped it in a way, they put a limitation on things. Because the original way, you wouldn't put that kind of damper on there to make it less than what it is. So it's this whole thing always between like some of the old Hindu music, man, the traditional, more like the Southern, not the Northern stuff that was in India, man. I'm talking about the stuff that was very traditional from India, maybe the Dravidians and people like that, and not the migration of the Iranians into India, or either the Islamic invasion into India, man. And they changed the whole scope of things around. So I try to say, I'm gonna listen to the North, the South, I'm gonna listen to the Hindu, listen to the Muslim stuff, and all the different cultures they have there. I'm gonna listen to that, and I'm gonna see what that's about, and patch all that together. But to single this out, man, in a way, to say that the Greeks did everything. And I remember, man, Pythagoras, and I'm gonna repeat what I've heard. If Pythagoras, they give Pythagoras all his credit, but there's also stories that Pythagoras went to Egypt, man. You know, and when he went to Egypt, man, he not, by him studying mathematics, man, they're studying the shape of like how to build buildings or pyramids. He had to learn how to shape music. Because if you, I told people, if you really want to see the shape of a pyramid, you can't listen to the Egyptian music, a lot of Egyptian music today, that's very influenced by Islam. You have to go back to traditional Egyptian scales. And when you go back to Egyptian scales, you have to go down that now all the way into the Congo, man. And then when you go into the Congo, Mali, you have to go further in, you have to connect with the Yorubas. Because the Yorubas, there's a connection between the Yoruba people or Nigeria, southern Nigeria, with ancient Egypt. We forgot all about this stuff. We forgot about these people. And when you hear the stuff they do and you say, wow, that was the key that was missing. So you don't want to just lock into just Pythagoras. Because there's people who say Pythagoras got more credit than he really deserved. I'm not going to knock Pythagoras. I never met him, but whatever I hear about him, I said it's beautiful, man. You know, if you read a book on theoretical arithmetic by Pythagoras, and you read about the geometric means, the harmonic means, and so on, and so on. And that's when you read about the golden ratio, man. I said, this is beautiful, man. You know, and that shape of the golden ratio, they only give you one shape. But that shape is throughout, man, you know? And I was listening, Sunday to the talk, and it was about the Ankh. I said, but the Ankh, man, you gotta be, that's only one thing when I'm showing the Egyptian. Well, the Ankh, if you watch the Yoruba people, man, and I say the Yoruba because they had some stuff going on, man. They had some stuff, they're awesome craftsmen. Out of sight, man, as far as that whole West African thing. But people neglect it. So if you look at something like the so-called deity Shango, that has, it's represented by a double axe. If you look at the double axe and you count the head, you got the Ankh. There's all this relationship. So if you talk about life, you talk about Shango and then that double head, that's fire, man. Fire, we know what fire is, man. How do you interpret fire in the body? Well, you got to go back into, if you're talking about biology, you got to talk about, the whole metabolic system. You got to talk about the doggone Krebs cycle. All of this stuff is included, man. But we've lost a lot of this because we've separated everything to this department, that department, and not seeing the whole and not seeing the two pathways. But I tell anybody, a lot of heavy knowledge, man, has come out Mali and the Congo, comes out all that Ifa divination system. That's powerful stuff, man. And just because they're in Africa, in the state of Africa, you don't say these people are not intelligent. So I look at those people with respect, as well as I look at somebody that has a three-piece suit on, you understand, and a bow tie that's going to be sitting behind a chair with a pipe out of his mouth. I listen to everybody. And whatever makes sense to me, man, I say that makes sense.
I'm going to cut in here. There's so many people that have questions for you, Professor Graves.
Yes.
And here's another one. how do you think of the realm of quantum mechanics as relating to your idea of the vibrational nature of the world?
Oh man, beautiful. Because it must have been in the 60s, early 60s, middle 60s, something like that. There was a film out called Under the Bridge or something like that. And so Bernard Stolman, who was the owner of ESP Records, he approached the Sheffield Logan and myself and said, look, my friend just did this movie and they're going to have, you know, the initial showing, man, private showing. And we're going to do about 10, 15 minutes of a little improvisational short film. So we went over there and we didn't do no film. We went and played, the Sheffield Logan and myself. And we played. And then at the end, this guy comes over to me and he said, hey, you guys, what you guys just played was what we were talking about in quantum physics. So I looked at the Sheffield and said, Sheffield, what is quantum physics? He didn't know. I didn't know. I said, but I'm going to look up the next day. I went to the library and got a book on quantum mechanics. I said, unbelievable. I said, now I know a new way of how to explain what the hell we're doing. So, and that kept me into quantum physics. I think those guys really got something. But again, we can't separate the two, man. We can't separate the two. You know, free jazz to me was really approaching the whole nature of what quantum mechanics is about. And if we would work together with more quantum scientists, man, we would have got some answers, man. That whole Cantor series. Talk about the Cantor series, you know, they're taking a whole line, you divide it into 3 sections and take out the middle section. I said, man, that's nothing but ba-doom, 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 ba-doom. And if you take that one section, divide that in 3 sections, ba-doom, 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 and you mix them up, man, you got every ritual that's played in the so-called traditional system of Yoda drumming and the whole diaspora that came into Brazil and Haiti. So it's all connected, man. Well, we don't talk to each other. We don't talk to each other. But quantum mechanics is in there. However, they got it together and figured it out. It's beautiful. And check out all those guys who was dealing with quantum mechanics. Even Einstein. Man, Einstein was talking music. Everything I read about Einstein, I said that was music. That's what he's talking about. But music not in a very static state, man, where everything is squared off. You know? Doing these graphs, man, everything was divided in a way that it was too stiff, man. There was no flexibility, man. Nothing was moving, man. Nothing was moving.
That brings up another good question here. You know, someone is asking about the exploration of the relationship between intuition and scientific method. So can you speak a little bit more about that? You know, they're often seen as antithetical, but in the work that we're talking about here, it's very complementary. You know,
it is complementary.
Do you think scientists should pay more attention?
No. See, we can't do that. We can't say that one has value, one has no value. Human beings was exposed to this for a reason. The only thing that stops them from being together is people themselves who wants to say, this is my thing, this is your thing. That if it wasn't for me using scientific methodology on certain things, I wouldn't have figured it out. But I know when to stop. No, we can't do that. Only thing is I say, don't say, well, it's not about this, it's only about that. Do it. If you don't try something, how are you going to know if they work together? You got to do it. And don't get frustrated because it doesn't, you can't get it at first. You don't get this overnight. You don't get this overnight. It's of course a lot of discipline, a lot of sacrifice, and so on 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 and so on.
Someone is asking, everybody's heartbeat is unique to them. How has your
own set going on? Everybody got their own set going on. I'm telling you that, man. We all make our own music. That was the beauty of so-called free jazz. You're supposed to make your own music, not with someone coming in with a composed piece of music and calling it free jazz, and everything is written all down. I said, wait, this is not free jazz. You're locking me in to say that I have to do it this way, I have to do it. That is your heart rhythm. That's not my heart rhythm. We got different heart rhythms, but everybody is very unique. Now, if I didn't have no technical knowledge of how to capture heart sounds and to measure these heart sounds, I wouldn't know no difference. I would think everything appeared the same. See, but everybody ba-doom, ba-doom, ba-doom is different. The reason they don't hear it is because you don't hear it in, like, say, a second or 5 seconds. You got to get down to milliseconds, man, microseconds. You see, when you hear like that there, you may not have, it may not be that distinct, but everybody is so different. Somebody, it could be just a matter, just like that. And that could make a difference in how somebody responds, how somebody reacts. It's like a blink of an eye, man. Like you're blinking, you don't know, man. But we all are very unique. And to try to clone us to be all the same, that's not right. That's wrong. From my thing is. And this is not coming from what I feel or my soul is telling me. This is coming from getting down using scientific methodology. So if you ask me to do scientific, it's great, man. You know, this stuff here again, we're starting to separate again, man, and that's dangerous. That's dangerous. That just screwed this up from the beginning. So I'm saying, well, this has no value, that has no value. You know, the tonsils has no value, the appendix has no value. What we don't need, what we do need. That's dangerous, man. You only do that when you have no understanding of how something functions. You write it off. But when you have an understanding of how something happens, you don't write it off. You include it in.
Right. There's a question that everybody wants you to respond to, and this is from, I think, Jacqueline, who says, "Thank you, Milford, for enlightening us. My soul is vibrating from this sharing with us today. Connecting our journey from Africa and the drum patterns that we, the diaspora, used to preserve and transcend the Black spirit in the New World to the pattern sounds within the human body and nature. How can we utilize sound and music to protect our spirits? How do you envision Black spirituals guiding us through this moment in history and resistance and curing us from the ongoing mental and health issues as a result of colonialism and imperialism?"
Well, I'm going to say this first of all. When you talk about things like this here, we have unenlightened people on the planet, man, that when you say something about the Black experience, they want to take it to a racist level. And that really bothers me. Because I tell my brothers and sisters, and I'm telling my brothers and sisters from my African side, I be listening to everybody, man. And I be listening to the whole thing of people trying to find their roots and find the roots of that, man. And I said, you know, all people on the planet suffered in some kind of way from some form of slavery, some form of racism, and so on and so on and so on and so on. I said, but to me, I'm past the point of like saying what white people did to Black people. You know, hey man, look, things happen, they happen, but you can't sit around, keep complaining about what somebody did to you. You have to understand, why did it happen to you? What was the purpose? And the question is this here, why are Black folks still around on the planet? You understand? They didn't challenge. They didn't challenge the people that invaded them like the Native Americans did. You see, and just about crushed their society, which is a shame of what happened when one human does to another human being. But I tell anybody, man, about the Black experience. I said, if you're not Black folk are classified as a one drop, whatever you want to call it, I said, you have no understanding of what the so-called Black people are talking about, the suffering, man. And I said, no one can take, man, no one can take your whole being, man. Take everything you have inside of you, enslave you, separate you, man, from people you're close by, and tell you you're nothing, man, and manipulate you and commit genocide the way they did, and still survive. So I said, Black folks is something that everybody needs to study, not because they're Black folk, because they're a human being. What happens when you do certain things to a human being, man? That's worse than worse, man. That leaving people out there stranded. And it hurts for me to see people today, young Black folks, man, whose family never got the opportunity, man, who was never educated in a certain kind of way, and how society works, man, who are just being enslaved, man, and how Black folks turn on themselves, and society admits that. Black folks is a study of human beings, not Black people, of what happens, man, when you do what was done to Black people, to a human being, man. And I said, Black folks, man, they keep forgetting, man, that motion again. Black folks, they could have just went off, committed suicide, and just died, man. But with some spirit in them, for me to say that Black folks is an example for everybody to learn from what happens to people, man, that is treated that way. So that music, it was about vibration. I keep saying music. Black folks had to learn how to vibrate, man, how to move themselves, man. So all that early music came about, you see, which talks about something else. When I see a lot of Black folks want to go get their music papers, I said, what music papers, man? We already had the music. Why would you reduce a real human experience of making sound and vibration to a piece of paper that you can make graphs out of that limits the totality of how your body moves, man? So the Black folks, all that music they did, man, it stimulates people. You had racist men that may listen to you in the South, have fun, eat, party, and then come and hang you from trees and burn you, man, chop your heads off, man. People want to forget about that. But this is true, man. So the Black experience is a lesson for all of us, man, as human beings, not as Black folks, as human beings. And I tell my brothers and sisters, man, we have to understand that, man. And we have to speak up more in the world and tell people how to get to their souls, man. Because most people didn't have that, man. They didn't have to go through that stuff, man. So I use the experience of how people from parts of Africa that was brought into slavery here, man. And that can go across, man, from Senegal to Guinea to the Congo, Nigeria, Ghana, man, you name it. Those particular people, mostly the western part. The eastern part didn't have it like the western part. And you study that music, man, but you're not studying Black folks. That's what they gotta stop saying, man. We're studying human beings, man. When you start saying Black folks, white folks, that's when the racism comes in. And we can't shake hands with each other. You understand? And tell people, look, man, there was errors made in the past and blah, 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 blah. I said, man, there's good people from all types of ethnicities and religions. And just because a person has a certain pigmentation, you don't spit on a man and blame something on these people because of something happens. You're screwed up, man. You're screwed up, man. So yes, man, you know what I mean? Black folks have to understand, man, you cannot allow our music, man, to be taken away from us and put in a damn institution and reduced, man. Because that's a human experience, not just a Black experience. And we have so much to offer. And it hurts, man, when you go places and it's 99% filled up with non-white people, man. I mean, with white people. And you don't see no Black brothers and sisters there, man. They talk about, you don't get no play on the radio, you don't get nothing. So it's other people that's you're doing it to yourself. You're doing it to your damn, I get angry sometimes when I hear this kind of talk. You understand? Stop blaming everybody else. It's our doggone selves, man, we have to look at and straighten that mess out, man. And have an understanding of what the hell went wrong. Stop trying to prove something to somebody else and say, man, this is a sacrifice. This was a sacrifice that people of ancestry, man, had to make to give the world what it is, man, to be treated as a human being, man.
There's a lot of right-ons coming from our folks here, and amens. I'm going to move back to, and thank you, Professor Graves, for that.
Yes.
Amazing wisdom. I want to move back to the heart a bit. One person wants to know how we can become more attuned to our own hearts.
Oh, we got to listen a lot, man.
To the heart's role.
We got to listen a lot, man. You talk to and Dr. Ventura, he knows as a cardiologist. Most of the cardiologists here, they're all imaging, man. They do too much imaging. We don't listen no more. And you know, Dr. Ventura gave me a stethoscope over there that was very traditional. And I got an electronic stethoscope, but I use that all the time because it was so beautiful for him to give me this old stethoscope. I said, man, we got to listen. They put on these earphones and they listen to all this commercial music, man, that's popping us all over the place. Put on a doggone stethoscope and listen to your own heart. That's how you get tuned in, man. Sing along with your own heart. And there's ways you can do that. We can't go through that now because that's 50 more lessons over the year. But we got to learn how to listen again, man. We need recordings, more recordings made, man, to give people suggestive ideas of how to happen, man. We got to simultaneously learn how to sing along with our heartbeat, an infant heartbeat mixed with an adult heartbeat, heart rate. So you got these two different heart rates going on. Ba-doom, ba-doom. Another one, ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. And when you separate them, you space them out a certain way, you make it ba-goo, ba-goo-doo-doo. Ba-goo, ba-goo, ba-goo-doo-doo. They talk about these premature, systolic premature beats. You know, ba-goo-doo-doo. I said, man, that's nothing but a mixture of an infant heartbeat with an adult heartbeat. And that's, to me, when I hear like ba-goo-doo-doo, I don't freak out. You can erase that, man, by just increasing the speed up to an infant heartbeat. That's just like nature saying, hey, buddy, you're getting too old, getting young again. So I'm gonna make you beat like a young heartbeat for a second. There's so many ways you can look at this here, man. But you gotta listen to your heart to know what it's about. People don't listen to their heart. People do not listen to their heart. How many people own a stethoscope? Put a stethoscope on again, instead of putting on some sort of audio device, man, to listen to some song. I don't know what they listen to sometimes, man. You know, not crazy stuff. I hear some rap that's beautiful, because it's really true. But then I hear that stuff and I say, please, man, stop. You don't even have to do that kind of stuff, man. You know, why keep driving yourself into the dungeon? Put on some rap that inspires you, man, to want to do something great, man. You know, but we got to listen. Hopefully I'm inspiring people when I walk down the street. You're going to have all these stethoscopes hanging off their door on that. That's the new jewelry, man. So you jewelers, make some stethoscopes that look beautiful, man. Mother Pearl stethoscopes, man. Come on.
Well, we should make sure we credit Milford for this idea, of course. We have one more question. I mean, there's infinite questions, really, but we've got to wrap things up. And I think it's a good way to wrap things up is maybe ending where we kind of started. The event in Bologna that Professor Graves contributed his cardiac-inspired work and demonstrated their effect on the differentiation of stem cells. How did that experiment influence the work of Dr. Ventura, and how has it affected Professor Graves' subsequent work?
Oh, you asked me that?
Well, maybe Carlo can, maybe Dr. Ventura can answer first about how that work together in 2016 has moved things forward, and we can ask Milford as well.
Just a few words. That experience was bringing me the real awareness that when the arts comes from the soul, when the rhythm is exactly the person who is playing those rhythms, then this music, this sound of the heart can talk to the innermost dynamics of our biology. And that was, to me, the most important outcome of that event. Arts, when it is real, when it comes from the soul, and this was the lesson from Milford, can talk to ourselves, and the intelligence of our cells can respond and can become unique. And the whole story can make us feeling that we are just one field of feelings. that we are human beings. And this is also the message that Milford was delivering one moment ago. Thank you.
Milford, do you have any final thoughts?
This was great, man. It encourages me to keep moving on. I have a lot of thoughts, man, but I just want to digest all of this in right now, you know. I just want to digest this, man.
Beautiful. Well, I'm going to thank Dr. Krauss and thank Dr. Ventura for their amazing contributions. We are continually getting flooded by praise and beautiful thoughts and energy from around the country and around the world for Professor Graves, and Professor Graves will make sure that you get and hear all of these.
Yes.
It's overwhelming and amazing. And a big virtual round of applause for Professor Graves and the amazing work that he has done. You can visit Philadelphia and see just a glimpse inside of his life and ideas and world at the ICA. We'd love for you to respond to a poll right now about caption use, as well as a survey in the chat to get feedback about tonight's program. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for Professor Graves.
Thank you.
And we will see you next time. And thanks to all of you for coming out in droves. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Mm.
Good night.